Coming up on Talking Points, billionaire Elon Musk has struck a deal with Twitter to buy the platform for $44 billion. We have the latest on this breaking news story in just a few minutes.
Plus, the Department of Justice appeals to reinstate the federal mask mandate for all travelers on public transit. We'll discuss the latest fallout on this battle on whether to keep the mandate in effect.
And we'll have the latest on the crisis in Ukraine and where things stand this evening. All of this and more. Talking Points starts right now. Elon Musk and Twitter officially have a deal in place. Welcome to our final Talking Points of the semester. I'm Oscar Offerman.
And I'm Mariah Humiston. The billionaire will be purchasing Twitter for approximately $44 billion.
Now, Musk has the power to change how the social network could reach its more than 200 million users every day. Joining us now with the latest details on what's next for Musk and Twitter is Talking Points breaking news analyst Tegan Brown. So, Tegan, the news shifted particularly quickly on this deal. We had reports last week that Twitter was not going to go for it. Now that it looks like they might go for it. What led up to this deal being agreed?
Yeah, so like you said, Oscar, this kind of came out of the middle of nowhere. There have been some developments over specifically the past 3 weeks, starting about 3 weeks ago when Musk bought 9% of the stake in Twitter after being an avid user on this app, speaking out a lot about free speech. And after that, he was offered a seat on the board of directors. And while there were rumors that he was going to take it, he didn't end up doing that. He turned it down. And then, of course, leading up to last week, he made this offer to buy Twitter. And today, he finally went through with it, offering $44 billion to buy the platform.
And so, Tegan, with Elon Musk now owning Twitter, what is going to happen with the former president? We know the controversy around his old Twitter account. Will he be making a return to the platform?
Yeah, so Trump was banned after the January 6th insurrection due to his tweets and his supposed role in that. And while Trump was an avid Twitter user, he actually said today after Musk's purchase that he would not be making his way back onto the app due to owning his own Truth Social app. He said that he was going to stay on there, stay true to it. And the Twitter CEO said that this was really a question for Musk and something that would be brought up when they do have these meetings to start discussing what's going to change with Twitter. So while Trump could be allowed back on the app, it's the question of if he'll want to, having his own platform.
Now, Tegan, we talked about that initial response from Twitter, very against this purchase. How did Twitter or any of its investors try to stop Elon Musk initially?
Twitter did initially try to stop Musk from purchasing this. They enacted what's known as a poison pill, which was invented back in the 1980s when there was this kind of takeover of these major companies. And basically what it is anybody who tries to buy 15% or more of a company, they're going to put out more stock at a cheaper price to get more investors flooding in, so that way ultimately they cannot buy that majority of the company.
And we saw Elon Musk threaten to sell his shares of Twitter in order to tank that stock. For Twitter, unfortunately for Twitter, that's not going to happen. Tegan Brown, thank you so much. Last week, a federal district court in Florida found that the CDC's mask mandate on public transportation exceeded its authority. A federal judge then vacated the mask mandate, ending the requirement for travelers.
Now, travelers no longer have to wear masks on airlines, buses, trains, and other forms of public transit. Talking Points legal analyst Spencer Kweskin is here to break down the case of Health Freedom Defense Fund versus President Biden. Spencer?
A Florida court has vacated the federal mask mandate. The CDC issued a mandate in 2020 requiring public transit travelers to wear a mask in order to prevent the spread of the coronavirus. It excluded children under 2 years old and people with disabilities that prevented them from wearing a mask. The plaintiffs, Health Freedom Defense Fund, Anna Daza, and Sarah Pope, sued to challenge the mask mandate by alleging harms from anxiety and panic attacks. Plaintiffs alleged 4 counts in the case. On count 1, Judge Mizell found that the CDC exceeded its authority by applying limited powers under Section 264A of the Public Health Services Act of 1944 too broadly, and by overreaching on the definition of sanitation to justify masking. On count 2, Judge Mizell found that the CDC improperly invoked the Good Clause exception. Normally, the public can review and comment on new rules before the rules become binding. However, the CDC implemented the mask mandate without this comment period. There are two exceptions: if the action isn't a rule, and if the agency properly invokes good cause. The mask mandate is a rule, and the court found that the CDC failed to properly invoke good cause as they only provided a single sentence for cause justification. On count 3, Judge Mizell found the mandate to be arbitrary and capricious as the CDC failed to sufficiently explain its reasoning in instituting the mandate. Judge Mizell dropped count 4 as count 1 satisfied the claim. As it would be implausible for the mandate to only be lifted on the plaintiffs, the court declared the mask mandate unlawful and vacated the mandate.
Hours after the mandate was lifted, nearly every airline in the United States dropped their masking requirements. The CDC and the Department of Justice are appealing the case, but the Biden administration has not asked the court for a stay at this time. The administration may be attempting to buy time, or perhaps vacate the ruling to protect the CDC's power after May 3rd via an obscure mootness doctrine found in the United States v. Munswingware, Incorporated. Now, it's up to each individual passenger whether or not they want to continue masking at this time. Oscar and Mariah, back to you.
Spencer Kweskin, thank you. Let's continue this discussion with Talking Points healthcare analyst Juliana Distante. So Juliana, we know that the CDC appealed this decision, but why are other officials saying they think that this is still necessary?
Thanks, Mariah. Now we're seeing that there are doctors from the American Public Health Association, along with officials at the CDC, that are seeing all of these cases going up across the nation because of variants and subvariants as well. Now we're seeing these increased cases at the university specifically. We see increasing cases in the county and across the region as well, along the nation as well. And now more variants and some variants are emerging and mutating, and as we've been covering for the past few weeks, that this is a serious imminent threat, and we're seeing this ramp up of cases, specifically of the BA2 subvariant of the Omicron.
Now, Juliana, let's talk about the airlines for a second. United, American, Delta. As soon as the judge in Florida released this ruling, you saw airlines immediately drop their mask mandate. What has the overall response been from the airline industry?
That's right. There's overall fatigue surrounding mask wearing, especially on public transportation. We see this on airlines, on trains, and other forms of busing as well. Public transit as a whole, we're seeing that airlines want the mask mandate dropped because passengers are thrilled to not have to wear masks on planes anymore. And we see this in transportation, especially people that travel frequently. And these banned passengers that were banned previously over mask disputes could be welcomed back onto flights as well, which is very interesting to see. And transportation as a whole is the movement of people, and with people comes more variants and spread of disease.
All right, Juliana Distante, thank you. Coming up on Talking Points, Russia has slapped the United States with a travel ban on some of the nation's prominent figures. Find out who is on that list next after the break.
Stem is precise, no margin for error.
Dare to forget that. Dare to have fun with it. Get weird with it. Dare to send those old STEM theories flying past the neighbor's house into outer space. Dare to program something internet-breaking, record-breaking. Dare to blow their minds. Dare to learn the difference between sedimentary and metamorphic rock. Go find those rocks. Dare to keep daring. Dare to STEM. Check out She Can STEM to get started.
Dad?
Just 1 minute, okay?
Hey, Bobo, do trees tell each other stories?
I'm sorry. I'm afraid I don't know that.
Hey, why don't we go find out? Listen.
Do clouds take naps?
I couldn't tell you.
Can birds draw pictures?
I don't have an answer for that.
Dad, do stars visit their friends?
Look!
Welcome back to Talking Points. Just yesterday, U.S. officials visited Kiev for the first time since the Russian invasion. This comes after various European leaders have visited Ukraine to see the results of the war firsthand. Talking Points international analyst Erica Love is here to explain what this means for Ukraine and what President Zelensky is asking of the U.S. Erica?
As the war in Ukraine enters its third month, Christian Ukrainians celebrated the Orthodox Easter. In this Easter Sunday message, President Zelensky said that the holiday brings in great hope and unwavering faith that light will overcome darkness. Later in the afternoon, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken and Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin met with President Zelensky, which makes them the highest-level U.S. officials to travel to Ukraine since the war began. The Biden administration has been under pressure to send a high-level official to Kyiv after recent visits from the European leaders, who were able to see the effects of the war firsthand. This visit also supports the Biden administration's goal of having a more impactful approach towards Russian tactics. Over $3.4 million in military assistance has been provided since the Russian invasion began. Additionally, the United Nations revealed that over 5 million Ukrainians have fled the country since the war began.
So, Erica Love, you join us now. Yesterday, Putin refused to honor the ceasefire for Eastern Orthodox Easter, and this caused controversy among Russian citizens. Will this have a lasting blowback for the Russian president?
Well, it's hard to tell. I mean, it was really difficult for the Russian Orthodox Church yesterday during services. A lot of members in the church were hearing gunfire and missile strikes outside of the church. It was supposed to be a time of mourning and a time for prayer for the individuals. A lot of them joined together in mass groups of prayer in local cities. So it puts a lot of the current Russians in Ukraine in difficult positions.
Now, last Thursday, Russia claimed to have taken complete control of Mariupol, but the Ukrainians are disputing that. What can we expect to unfold with this now in the coming weeks?
Yes, so President Zelensky said that there are still civilians there are still Ukrainian soldiers there, they're occupying a factory, and they don't plan on leaving until there's guaranteed support and protection against Russian forces for them to leave. The other thing is that with the visit from the U.S. secretaries, this kind of puts into motion the idea that the U.S. embassy is coming back. That was into talks when they were there speaking with President Zelensky. So the hope is that with the embassy coming back, that now there will be more peace talks and negotiations on the table.
All right, this has been a 2-month-long developing story, and it continues. Erica Love, thank you. Earlier this week, Russia announced a travel ban on many prominent American figures. Here to break down the ban and how it could impact those on the list is Talking Point's White House analyst Jacob Goldberg. Jake?
Just last month, Russia sanctioned President Joe Biden and 398 members of Congress. Earlier this week, Russia banned more than 25 prominent Americans from traveling to the country. The list of those banned from entering includes Vice President Kamala Harris and other top U.S. officials. The list also names business leaders and reporters such as LinkedIn CEO Ryan Rosalsky, ABC reporter George Stephanopoulos, and most notably Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg. Russia has previously banned Facebook and Instagram in the country and has named them as extremist organizations. However, the list did not include names such as Twitter CEO Parag Agrawal or Google CEO Sundar Pichai, even though Twitter and YouTube have been proactive in handling Russian misinformation. The travel ban comes as Russia tries to retaliate against the West for sanctions imposed at the beginning of their conflict with Ukraine. The Russian Foreign Ministry says that the denied entry list includes those directly involved in the development, substantiation, and implementation of the Russia-phobic course, and it will be on an indefinite basis. Many who were blocked from travel took aim at Russia, pointing out that they wouldn't want to travel there anyways. Ned Price, a State Department spokesman, said, "I have to say, it is nothing less than an accolade to have earned the ire of a government that lies to its own people, brutalizes its neighbors, and seeks to create a world where freedom and liberty are put on the run, and if they had their way, extinguished." While many on the travel ban are proud to be called out by the government, the actions from Russia and the Kremlin show even more hostility towards the West and NATO.
The Russian travel ban also affects 61 Canadians, including defense officials and journalists. The Russian Foreign Ministry says the ban comes after President Biden announced a substantial $1.3 billion aid package to Ukraine last week. The U.S. says it plans to provide an additional $500 million to Ukraine for humanitarian aid. This will likely result in even more Americans being added to the travel ban. Guys, back to you.
Jacob Goldberg, thanks so much. French President Emmanuel Macron has been re-elected. Macron beat far-right challenger Marine Le Pen by nearly 18 points. The 44-year-old is the first French president to be re-elected in 2 decades. Joining us now to discuss the results and its impact is Talking Points analyst Chilakasi Adele. So, Chilakasi, how did the results differ across France, and where did Le Pen do overwhelmingly well?
So Le Pen didn't capture major metros like Paris, Strasbourg, but she did increase her totals in post-industrial places in the northeast of France and also in the conservative southeastern part of France as well. 26 election districts total flipped from Macron to Le Pen in 2022, and some of the overseas French territories had some of the most interesting results. In Guyana, Le Pen won by nearly 20 points. In Guadeloupe, she also won by a heavy margin there, and as well in Martinique. So she didn't win mainland, but in a lot of these French territories, she comes out on top.
It's interesting to see how Le Pen did outside of the hexagon. As for France on the world stage, we know Macron was very pro-NATO and will continue to be that, and Le Pen was very much not. So how will this election affect France overall on the world stage?
So it's interesting, right? Macron, we know, very pro-EU, pro-NATO, pro-G7. Le Pen made it clear during her campaign that she was not. So over the course of the results, we've seen a lot of world leaders who are part of these alliances, like the European Council president, like the Japanese prime minister, congratulating Emmanuel Macron, saying that we're welcoming to work with him, as Macron has been one of the most forefront faces in the war in Ukraine in terms of putting himself in an allyship with the country of Ukraine. But it is interesting, one name who congratulated Macron, was Boris Johnson, Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. And that's interesting, right? Because you would see Boris Johnson's politics is a lot more in line with Marine Le Pen, but you also have to remember, he's been one of the biggest voices in support of Ukraine during the course of the war.
It'll be very interesting to see how this affects European and French politics in the future. Chilakasi Adele, thank you so much. Coming up on Talking Points, Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene testified in a hearing about her alleged involvement in the January 6th insurrection. Find out after the break what could happen if Greene is found to be connected to the incident. Next after the break.
There are 16 million children struggling with hunger in America. This is a serious we can solve. Visit feedingamerica.org to help. Together we can solve hunger. Together we're feeding America.
If you need to do something to feel okay to drive, you're not okay to drive. Don't drive buzzed.
Fancy pants peanut butter? A big screen television? You haven't even bought a sofa yet. A motorcycle? When your father finds out, he's gonna flip his shoes with 2 buckles? What do you even need 2 buckles for? Mr. Big Shot, buying whiskey shots for everybody in the bar. From the looks of it, I'd say nobody even remembers. Feed the pig.
Your daughter just had her first breakup. Do you A, put yourself in her shoes? B, console her?
Don't worry, sweetie. This is gonna happen a lot.
Or C, find her a new boyfriend?
Nice, single boys. That was weird.
As a parent, there are no perfect answers. But you don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same.
Welcome back to Talking Points. A few major stories have broken out of Florida within the past few days. One of those stories is Disney's special agreement with the state to essentially govern the parks themselves, which has now been revoked. Talking Points congressional analyst Bond Dimitri Photos joins us now to explain the latest details from down south. So, Bond, the right has been revoked for them to govern themselves because of the disapproval of the Don't Say Gay bill. What does this now mean for Disney?
So essentially, Disney is losing the ability to essentially manage all the services themselves. That is policing, that is fire, that is sewage, and it's going to turn over to essentially a state government. That means that they aren't able to operate Disney World as sort of a corporate town where they're in charge of everything. They now have to essentially listen to a board of citizens who do live in the area. That means that they're losing a lot of control, and that means that they probably are going to look to try to, say, work with the governor because they do want this control. It is incredibly important for them to keep a hand in these services.
And now this isn't the only change in governing that's happening in the state. Recently, Governor Ron DeSantis made another change to local governing by approving a map that is claimed the polling data can benefit Republicans. How are the legal challenges going if this stands, and how will this affect Florida's political landscape?
So essentially what's happening is Florida is becoming even more Republican with these new districts. They're losing a blue district on the top that's completely disappearing and merged into other Republican districts. They're losing a lot of Democratic districts around cities. And one important thing to see is they're actually building Republican districts out of older Republican districts. They're pushing it more towards a Republican-based center and moving a lot of Democrats out and dividing them.
All right, Bon Dimitri Photos, thank you so much.
Georgia Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene testified on the January 6th insurrection on Friday. She was the first member of Congress to testify on the incident, and her testimony was met with heavy criticism. Talking Points campaign trail analyst Jake Morrell is here to tell us more on the hearing that could disqualify Greene from running for re-election. So, Jake, there was one important moment during that trial, that hearing rather, where that many are criticizing Greene for. Tell us a little bit about that.
Oscar, good evening. Yeah, so the one major point that people are talking about with this hearing is when Marjorie Taylor Greene was asked about her comments on Speaker Nancy Pelosi. She was asked if she had said Pelosi was a traitor to the country, and she responded by saying this.
You've said that, haven't you, Ms. Greene, that she's a traitor to the country?
No, I haven't said that.
Okay. Put up Plaintiff's Exhibit 5, please.
Oh, no, wait. Hold on now. I believe by not upholding the securing the border, that violates her oath of office.
So as you can see here, that's a big issue because she said that she had not made those comments when the lawyer immediately ratioed her and brought up the video evidence of her saying that. So her lying under oath is definitely a big deal in this testimony.
And that lead lawyer in this testimony, Andrew Selly, he's leading the campaign to disqualify Greene from the ticket. What do you think the chances are that will actually happen?
I don't think the chances are very high because what he's trying to do is use a little-known provision of the 14th Amendment that says if you are a government official or a military member and you have incited an insurrection, then you cannot run for office again. This was in the 14th Amendment after the Civil War, another very famous American insurrection right there. But this case has already been thrown out in Arizona and North Carolina, so I don't think the chances are very good of this passing through.
All right, well, we'll certainly see what's going on down in the Peach State. Jake Morrell, thank you so much. Coming up after the break, we say farewell to the 2022 graduating class of Talking Points. Stick with us.
Meet Norm. He lives with anxiety, but with the help of this latest innovation from Be Normal, he can be normal, just like everyone else. With the swipe of a finger, you can project happiness, confidence, machismo. Why settle for being real when you can be normal? The Normal Maker, new from Be Normal. This item doesn't really work because there's no such thing as normal. We're all different. What we like, how our brains work. In fact, 1 in 5 of us live with mental illness. Don't filter who you are. Start by talking to someone you trust. And remember, there is no normal.
Welcome back to Talking Points. With the last few minutes left in our final show of the semester, we traditionally like to allow our graduating seniors to talk about their favorite moments as a member of Talking Points. Now, For this year, it's us three. Spencer's leaving us a year early.
Yep.
He's going to start law school at Notre Dame. I hope I can confirm that.
Yeah, thank you.
And before we get into the thank yous, I just want to show a few pictures of our first times on Talking Points. Now, I started back in 2019. That's not my first time on Talking Points, for the record. That was the City of Syracuse special that we did freshman year. Not freshman year. Sorry, that's my sophomore year. And yeah, I cut my hair. So there's that. Let's move on. I gotta move away from that picture.
So
There's Mariah's.
this is my first debut. I actually started the spring semester of my sophomore year, and my Talking Points debut was actually the same week that Syracuse shut down. So I went on for one show sophomore year, and then took quite a long break until the fall of 2020.
And let's see.
Yeah,
oh my goodness.
Yeah, there I am. I started as a freshman. It was the first webisode of 2019 that we did. Right whenever the impeachment inquiries were starting with President Trump. Yeah, what a way back that is.
Spencer, what a photo, what a look.
Oh my. Yeah, look at that.
For the last year and a half, it has been my absolute pleasure to serve as executive producer of this amazing, amazing show. And there are just way too many people I need to thank right now. First of all, the people who were here when I started back in 2019, I'm talking about Connor White, I'm talking about Sabrina Majari, and Jack Watson. Just to start, those three are doing some excellent work. They are our proud alums, and we could not be prouder of them. I also want to thank the producers who came before me on Talking Points. I want to talk about Aaron Lyons, Jishnu Nair, Brandon Ross, and Rob Flax. You guys paved the way for us to continue this amazing show, especially to Rob for giving me the opportunity to executive produce this show. I also want to thank my amazing co-executive producer, Ben Schiller, who has been with me for the past year. Ben, you were amazing. You are going to keep this show going, and I couldn't be prouder to leave Talking Points in your hand. I also want to talk about you, Mariah. You started around the same time as I did. Watching you grow on air has been amazing and has been one of my joys here on Talking Points, and I could not be prouder of you. I also want to thank my amazing APs who have been with me this entire ride. Lindsay, who's now our news director, as well as Jacob Goldberg, who started with us as APs. I also want to thank our current APs, Anna Salevich, Ashley Sloan, and Juliana Distante. You guys are incredible. I also just want to thank my amazing anchors, Chillicothe Adele and Tegan Brown. You guys are just incredible. And all my amazing analysts who've done so much work. We also have Lauren leaving us. She runs audio for us here on Talking Points. She will be leaving us as well. And we couldn't be prouder of you and what you guys have done.
Yeah, and I think I was also going to thank our analysts and the anchors, Tegan and Chalet. It's been great anchoring with them for the past 2 semesters. I also think I would not be here without the help of the seniors that were here last year. So a big thank you to Natalie Fahmy, Anthony DeBundo, Michael Fernari, and Manny Martinez for everything that they taught me when I came onto this show. I think I can say confidently the show is in good hands.
I think so.
I mean, I can honestly say seeing everyone make their debuts that have gone onto the show and seeing how far they've grown since their first time, it makes me really happy to be a part of something so special at CitrusTV.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, huge thank you to our executive producers, our associate producers, and all the analysts who have been on the show. The show has, from when I started on it, it was one of the smaller shows at Citrus, and it's grown into something pretty incredible. So I know that I've grown a lot on this show. I'm heading off to law school, but this will always be a special place to me. And thank you all, and thank everybody for watching, I guess, yeah.
And yeah, for me, that's the first and last time I'll be anchoring Talking Points, and that's all the time we have for you on this episode of Talking Points. Be sure, please, follow us on Twitter and Instagram at CitrusTV News and like us on Facebook. I'm Oscar Offerman.
And I'm Mariah Humiston. For one last time, have a great night, Syracuse.